Okay guys, good afternoon. Welcome to Equalities and Future Generations Policy Development Committee. For those that don't know me, I'm Councillor Mandy Evans. I represent Bonamine Ward and I'm the new chair for this PDC. So if we can go around, you're going to, as you go on the screen, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, do the mechanics here then.
Helen, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Councillor Paulette Smith, Clydach Ward, and I'm Councillor Mandy's Vice Chair.
David?
Councillor David Halliwell, Sketty Ward.
Peter Jones?
Anyway, I'm Councillor.
Hello, yes, sorry, that took a while. Councillor Peter Jones, Sketty Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie?
Councillor Leslie Walton, Town Hill Ward.
Joe Hill?
Yeah, Joe Hale, St Thomas.
Hiya, Joe. Joanne Portwood, please.
Hi, I'm a Policy and Strategy Officer for the Strategic Delivery Unit.
Sally Ann Evans, please.
Yeah, Sally Ann Evans, lead lawyer for legal.
Thank you. And Mary Sherwood.
Hello, I'm Mary Sherwood, Councillor for Uplands, and if anyone doesn't know, I'm also a joint WLGA spokesperson for equality, anti-poverty and welfare reform. So although I don't lead on equality for Swansea, I do chair a Wales-wide group of representatives looking at equality issues. So I will from time to time, perhaps if it's relevant to the meeting, update people on things that are being discussed nationally. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline, are you there? No. Is Linda in?
Linda Taylor Lloyd's joined, yeah.
Hiya, Linda. Linda.
Anyone there?
Yeah, okay. Males Ward.
Hi, Linda. Hiya. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Linda Tyler Lloyd, Councillor for Males Ward.
Thank you, guys. I haven't forgotten anyone, have I? Nope.
Councillor Cyril Anderson's joined.
Oh, Cyril's in, right. Hiya, Cyril.
And from
Would
Town
you like to
Hill Ward.
introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Cyril Anderson from Town Hill Ward.
And we have Councillor Louise Gibbard joined as well.
Hiya, Lou. Louise.
Hiya, hi, yes.
Hiya. Do you want to introduce yourself quickly, please? Thank you.
Councillor Louise Gibbard, Dunford Ward. I am formerly chair of this, but now joining from the other side as joint cabinet member for supporting communities, and equalities is in my portfolio. So here to support and chip in as necessary. Thanks.
Thank you. And this lovely lady is?
Kate Jones, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you very much. Right, okay, guys. Obviously, it's our first meeting. I've done a little bit of research as to where we are. Obviously, it's a new chair for me. So be patient, first 1 or 2 meetings, please. So we're meeting today to discuss the work plan and to transfer any unfinished agenda items onto the work plan. So the first thing I'd like to say is, guys, any apologies for absence, please?
None from me, Chair.
None from me?
Nope.
Disclosures of personal prejudicial interests? None? None. Right, the minutes from 20, no, that's me, and that's the one before.
There's 2 lots,
yeah.
27th.
I got it on
29th of September.
Yeah, 29th of September,
and
please.
1st of October.
So we have page 1, page 2, page 3, any matters arising? No, thank you. And then we have to agree the minutes from the 1st of October 2020. It's now on page 4 and page 5. Any matters arising? Thank you. Louise?
Yeah, yes.
Do you want to just come in and just generally update where we are?
Yeah, thank you. So I think there are a couple of kind of items that we sort of didn't exactly finish off with last year, but sort of, you know, it's up to the committee really how they want to proceed on those. I mean, one of the things that we were looking at was developing the co-production strategy, and that was sort of, I think the strategy was sort of finished in kind of draft form, but the next stage is really sort of to get that implemented. So as some of you may know, we're setting up a strategic equalities and future generations board to kind of look at the equalities issues across the council a bit more strategically, as the name suggests, and look at the actions resulting from the previous scrutiny inquiry and the strategic equalities plan. So potentially that's a place where we could pick up the co-production strategy. Similarly, with some of the other issues that we were looking at, like I know we started looking at some of the work to do with Black Lives Matter motion. I think that, you know, some of that work's been still going on in the background, and again, members of the committee might want to sort of be updated on that. And then also just the main thing that I wanted to just ask if the committee would consider as part of the work plan then is things as they arise, really, because part of the strategic equality group will be looking at the plan and see if there are some policy gaps. You know, we might want to then bounce back to the committee to see about filling those and work together in that way. So so yeah, those are just things from my perspective I wanted to throw in there. But obviously the work plan is up to the new committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Louise. Well, I would say, okay, then we'll put the co-production on the work plan, just to finish, to tie up the ends. Obviously, the energy strategy agenda items. I've picked up quite a bit from the last meeting you've had regarding the energy and carbon management strategy plan, obviously 2020 to 2030. From what I'm taking from what I've read, you had presentations, and what I aim to do is to link in with the relevant officers, because obviously that's a fluid one, isn't it? Right. Energy strategy. So the energy strategy needs to be on the work plan, please. Speaking for myself, and obviously, you know, I will go around the platform. I would like us to see, and I know it's been done time and time again, but we're in a different world with COVID, and we're all working remotely, and it brings different concerns. You know, lifestyle balance, well-being, the atmosphere and the environment you're working in, the kit, and I believe we've got a duty to our staff, because we all know in the real world there is not going to be no return overnight. This is going to be a long drawn-out process with COVID-19, and I just feel, you know, my passion is obviously that we've got a commitment to engage and to ensure that as far as possible that, you know, our staff are catered for when they're working remotely, because we all know in the real world there might be an option that some might not return for a long time, and there might be an option that some may return for minimal hours into the workplace, but work remotely. And you know, I think we need to take a serious look at this, because it's been 6 months down the road, and you know, there is a lot of elements which we might foresee in the future, which would have impacted from where we are currently today. So I would like to put a piece about engagement again with the staff, and the remote working, and the impact of COVID-19. We all okay with that? Yeah. And when we talk about council democracy, I know there's been quite a bit of work done, but it is about that engagement with our public again. And I think we've got an opportunity maybe to not do things, well, yes, to do things better, and to be maybe a bit more productive around our staff. And so I would like to put a bit on there about the council democracy, and build a strategy or a policy around the impact of COVID again, because it is all about COVID currently. You know, we've all got different experiences, and you know, it is a new way of life, and we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So we need to be prepared, and it is about recovery. And I think the council democracy, you know, with the public engagement and consultations, and I know we've done lots and lots and lots on this, but I just feel we need to be taking the public with us, you know, well, during the recovery from COVID-19. Are we all okay with that? Any input?
Couple of hands up.
I think there's a few of us. I think there's a few of us that got our hands up. Peter Jones, Paulette Smith, yeah. Leslie, and me.
We'll do Leslie first then. Sorry, whoever was first. Sorry, I got a tick in. Leslie, do you want to come in?
I think I was first, actually, Chair.
I think you were, Peter.
Thank you. I'm not trying
Peter first then, sorry.
I'm not trying to be competitive, but if we follow correct procedure, I think I was the first.
Okay, can't see all the hands up here.
Two things I would like to refer to in relation to the work plan. First of all, the draft sustainable development policy. This was a document that we looked at as a committee a little while ago, and I'm looking at a copy of it now. It was a draft sustainable development policy document, and basically it's sort of spelling out the requirements of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which of course is one of the two areas of central concern to this committee, the 7 wellbeing goals and their application or interpretation and application here in Swansea in terms of corporate functions developing in relation to those requirements. I'd like to know what's happening now with this, because for a well-being committee, the sustainable development policy is absolutely central. It's what we're all about. It's what we should be driving forward across the council in everything that we do. So I'd like some comment, please, in relation to that as to how we're going to carry it forward. The second thing I'm interested in, as everybody will know, is the natural environment. And I find it rather odd, Chair, that when I look down the list of suggested work plan topics, we haven't looked at the natural environment. We don't have, Chair, a PDC for the natural environment, so that in effect, anything to do with the natural environment, interestingly, emerges from scrutiny observing what the council has done, but not actually having a vehicle for putting forward directly what the council should be doing. And in terms of well-being of future generations, alongside climate change, alongside equality, alongside energy, alongside Black Lives Matter, surely the natural environment should be a consideration also for this committee, particularly as it doesn't have a direct voice of its own, otherwise under the PDC system to express. So those are the two things I'd like some discussion about, please, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Louise, may I ask you, with regards to the Sustainable Development Policy, do I need to go and seek where we are with that? Yeah, there's been no updates currently, no?
From my perspective, I thought that we'd sort of signed off on the draft and then it was just going to proceed to the next stage in the sort of go to cabinet or corporate brief or whatever next is what I think. Jo Portwood might be able, I think she's got her hand up there, might be able to give us an update from that side of it. But as far as I was concerned, Peter, I think the development around it we had finished, and it was just about the implementation now. But obviously, it's something that needs to be kept an eye on, and that comes under David Hopkins' portfolio anyway. But yeah, so Jo might be able to update on that side of it.
Okay, I think, Chair, in terms of process, I think if the committee are happy with the draft policy, then if you could raise that with David as the relevant cabinet member to see if he wants to recommend it goes forward as policy. If he does, if you let me know, then I can prepare a corporate report for it to go into the corporate briefing cycle.
Okay, I'd be happy to. So you're suggesting I get in touch with David and raise it with him?
No.
I think it's the chair, sorry, Peter. The chair, I think, yeah, needs to send the report to the cabinet member, happy to recommend it as policy.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And what about my second point concerning the natural environment and its absence? It doesn't have a voice in the PDC system at all. And it should be under well-being future generations.
It should.
So we've done no work on the natural environment at all. No, it's not in any PDC, Peter. No.
Well, no. I'm suggesting it should be this one in the absence of any others, because after all, your primary remit is the well-being of future generations, and central to that, alongside climate change, is biodiversity in the natural environment.
I'd second that, Peter.
Thank you, Jo.
I would just, sorry to jump in, Mandy, it's Mary. Just, I think we did look at the climate emergency action plan, and we have been monitoring actions arising following the climate emergency motion, and I think that's just the thing that we need to keep a watching brief on. So the energy strategy and carbon strategy have been related to that. But I think that there are other officer bodies being developed, which we would be expecting to report to this PDC, so that they're doing following the climate emergency declaration. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer my point about the natural environment, with respect.
Well, I'm open to all suggestions, guys, and we can put it on the work plan. We can do a bit of work around it. But obviously, we've got the draft policies. I've had a quick scan. I haven't really digested them yet, guys. But if it's a request, Peter, we'll put it on. We'll do a bit of work around it. Yeah, we'll put it on. So if we look at right, so we'll keep it under the energy strategy, but we'll put a forward on it for natural environment, and we'll add it to the agenda, Peter. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Walton's still a hand up.
Leslie.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mandy. Let me just point out, I would have said that I knew Peter was first, only he got in before me. The thing I want to raise and check with Louise is where we are with the working group of Black Lives Motion, and what's going to be the way forward, because I know I spoke to Louise about who would carry on chairing that group, and obviously I want to keep the momentum going. I was very pleased with the document that was circulated as to the very good work that has been done by officers already, and it's suggesting that with regard to statues, we don't really have that much of an issue in Swansea, but we do have an issue with street names, and this needs looking at. But I think on a far more positive side, I was so pleased to see all the names being put forward of people we can start recognising, including a lot of women, a lot of black people, a lot of people from all sorts of backgrounds, wealth, not wealthy, etc., etc. So I think we've got a really good start, and I don't want to lose that. I want us to keep going on it. So if Louise, you can just sort of update us as to where we're going next. Thanks.
Is that okay, Chair, if I just quickly respond to that? Yeah, well, it's very timely, Leslie, because I sort of did a bit of chasing on this myself this week. So yeah, as we've said, the officers are doing some work in the background, obviously incredibly stretched in the circumstances in terms of resources and other things going on. So I think because obviously it also comes under Robert Francis Davis's portfolio, and he came along to the last working group meeting. So I think what the proposal is to for him and I to sit down with Tracy McNulty to kind of just give it, let's see what we're up to now, and then what are the next steps, and then hopefully we can pull in members of this committee as we were doing previously, and yeah, I think as we discussed last time, I think we wanted to talk about public engagement around it and things like that. So as I say, I think it's still very up in the air, but it's not that we're not doing anything. It's just nothing ready to kind of go public with at this moment, I think is probably safe to say.
Louise, may I ask you, is there like a working group?
We did. There's a working group of officers, I think, who've been looking at this, and we had a working group of interested members of this committee who were sort of linking in to get updates and to sort of as a sounding board kind of thing, really, wasn't it, and to put forward questions and thoughts. So yeah, I mean, I would like to see that continue. We just need to sort of work out where that fits in the new structure and what's and with what else is happening in the wider work plan, etc.
Chair, can I just add a quick question?
Go on, Leslie.
Yeah, thanks. Louise, any idea of time scale?
I'm afraid not. I would, as far as I would like things to happen sooner than later, but I think, as we've said before, it has to be done properly. So it can't be rushed. But then
that's why I want to make sure officers realise that as a committee, and I think I'm probably speaking for everybody, that we're all supportive of this. We will all want to do our bit, and by all means we can contribute to help with whatever work is involved. So if you can make sure that message gets passed back, and as I say, I appreciate all the work that's been done already. It's absolutely excellent. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Joe Hill?
Yeah, you just on the remote working, I just want to concur with everything that Peter said about the environment and about well-being of future generations, because it is absolutely core to how this council not only performs, but how it's seen in the wider world as well. So spot on, Peter. Working remotely, I raised this, I don't know if Peter was there or not, but I raised this at a scrutiny meeting shortly after start of COVID, because we clearly an awful lot of offices are empty and a lot of people were working from home. But I asked the leader specifically about the policy that we had in place now at the time, and Phil Roberts answered and said that a new policy was being worked at. So maybe we can find out
that policy. Okay.
Well, And if it is being worked on, maybe we can find where they are, because I've not seen it, I've heard of it since. Because we have to make sure that there's a little bit of consistency in how people are working from home as well. All right, cheers.
Thanks, Joe. And I totally agree with you. You know where my passion is, and it is a new world for all of us.
Yeah, and it's really,
Joe?
I was just going to say, and it's really disappointing that I know everybody's under pressure. I know everybody's stressed out, but we're seeing the worst in some people as well, you know, and how they're treating staff. And that's my experience in the workplace anyway. We're seeing some fantastic people, and we're seeing some people that are just reverting back to, well, everything's normal, and I'll talk to people and I'll tell people what to do. And, you know, the sign of any organisation, or the measure of any good organisation, is how you treat your staff, bottom line.
And I totally agree with you, Joe.
Yes.
Mary?
Thanks, Mandy. So I agree that co-production is really important, and just to kind of go along with that, maybe whether or not as part of the co-production strategic framework that we've already been looking at, the point about involvement and what you said yourself, Mandy, about democracy and involvement, I would say either of staff or of people out there in the community, is really, really core to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and to achieving better equalities. So I mentioned the Wales-wide working group on equality, which Louise and Alison attend. And that committee across the whole of Wales is saying that engagement and involvement is a massive problem. Councils aren't very well geared up for it. It's not very well resourced. There's not a great deal of knowledge about to do it. And of course, the shortcoming of our own workforce is that it's not as diverse as we would like it to be. And if you don't have a lot of voices in the organisation representing different views, then you end up making policy that doesn't suit everybody. You know, my daughter told me that today Aldi's been blasted on the news because a lady went in there to buy sanitary towels and was told that they weren't essential. And that's what you get when people who have periods aren't involved in your policy making, and the councils can fall foul of this sort of thing all the time. So the equality discussion and the wellbeing discussion needs to involve a lot of people. So I'm really glad that you're keeping co-production on there, and I think, like you said about democracy, definitely brilliant. Remote working, I think that's brilliant, and the way in which people in different circumstances are experiencing remote working and how it is an equality issue. Certainly the way that people on low incomes who might be in more crowded housing without being able to find a quiet space or have a decent desk, or keep up with their broadband payments and all that sort of stuff, that is something that the poverty reduction PDC is not looking at. So I'll be really glad to see that sort of work come here for sure. The thing about the natural environment, I was just trying to find a mechanism whereby the PDC kind of already has a thread that we can attach that onto. We do already historically kind of have oversight of the Climate Emergency Action Plan. So far, the only thing that's really come out of that is the Charter, and I think Biodiversity Working Group and other things like that have been mentioned. So all I'm saying is that I think there's a historical involvement of this committee in the climate emergency work, which justifies us saying that we want to look at the natural environment and how that is being prioritised in the light of climate emergency. I think that's all that we've talked about. So yeah, everything that you've suggested putting on the work plan and that colleagues here have suggested is really great as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Paulette?
Thank you, Chair. A lot of what has been already said, it was part of what I was going to say. But we're going to have to tread very carefully, because I think as far as poverty is concerned, we have no idea yet as to the the amount of or the effect it's going to have. We can see how it's having an effect on education and how we are fighting for free school meals, or England are. But I do honestly think we are going to have to be very aware that this is something in our lifetime we have never experienced before, and we do not know what is in front of us. Even when they have got a vaccine for the virus, it's still going to be left worldwide that we are going to have to rebuild an awful lot that society has already left because of it. Even mental health, for one thing. None of us know exactly what is in front of us. So on the work plan, yes, Chair, totally agree. Thank Mary and Louise's input, but I do honestly think we're going to have to tread very carefully as we go along to find out what parts of society are going to really be affected. And I get a feeling, as Peter said, well-being is going to be something that will be on top of the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. No one else? Nope, thank you. Thank you for all your contributions. I think my take very much is this is my first meeting. Equality means different things to different people. And I am very oldie schooly, trade union background. So, you know, equality to me is all different, all equal. And I would always promote and I would always fight for that. You know, and we live in a very unbalanced world where if you have it, you have it. If you haven't got it, maybe you'll never have it, because that struggle is just impossible. The opportunities are not there. And I think with COVID, we have got a chance to kind of identify some of the priority issues where our families and our residents have probably found themselves being impacted in a different way. Maybe they've had time to sit and reflect, you know, as far as possible, exactly the impact, and maybe an opportunity to reflect on exactly where they are as individuals, as families. And I agree with Paulette, we need to tread carefully. You know, it's massive, because COVID-19 have brought so much trauma to so many lives. You know, even affluent families and individuals are finding themselves in very traumatic times. We were the silent killer. We don't know enough about it. And, you know, as we go on, I hope we will learn more. But I foresee a very, very, very long battle with this silent killer. And it is a killer. And, you know, it's like, you know, I'll speak for myself. I've been shielded 7 months. Now the attitude is, you get out into the big wide world, because everybody's washing their hands. No, they are not. And everybody's social distancing. No, they are not. And it's like, there's hundreds like me, maybe not as confident as I am. These people are, you know, very traumatized by what decisions are being made, fighting with something we don't know. But I agree, we need to prick our priorities. And when we talk about the Equalities Board and the Future Generations Board, I'm hoping that board will pick up quite a bit, Louise, you know, regarding the impacts on COVID-19.
Oops, sorry. Yes, absolutely. I would really like to see, you know, a two-way relationship between this committee and the and the board as that gets off on the ground. And definitely, I think there's a lot of equalities issues coming out of the pandemic that we really need to address. So it's an excellent work together potentially.
Right. Any more input, guys? Right, work plan. I did have a piece of paper, got so many bits of paper in. Right, so we'll add the natural environment to the energy strategy and do a bit of work around that, Pete. And I know, Peter, you're an expert and you'll have massive input into this. So we'll keep that on the agenda. But regarding November, I would say we really need to start picking up on the engagement with staff and the council democracy. And then we'll just, I would like to get three months work plan agreed, and then we just take on as we go. So co-production, obviously, the natural environment with the energy strategy, and obviously the Black Lives Matter. Louise, will you feed back into us as to how we move along with this?
Yeah, as soon as I can. So this, I haven't got an update now, but I can as soon as I can. Yeah.
Peter, do you want to come in?
Yes, Chair, very quickly. You're linking, Chair, the natural environment with the energy strategy. They're separate as far as I'm concerned. The energy strategy is all about carbon emission reduction and finding alternatives to fossil fuels. The natural environment issue is to do with protecting and enhancing the natural environment. And it stands on its own, Chair, so I'd rather see it separated away, if you don't mind, from energy strategy. They're two separate issues.
Are we all in agreement? So we keep it separate? Yeah? We keep it separate then. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we've got enough to be going on with for 3 months, guys. I'll get in touch with David Hopkins regarding the Am I right in now? The corporate brief and the sign off and see where we are with that. Obviously I'll liaise with the relevant officers just really to get up to date with where we are. And if there's no other input, I would just like to say thank you very much for your contributions.
I'm really sorry. Could I just I just remembered something that we did say that we were going to look at this year when we spoke to Martin Nichols, and we were looking at the overall sort of climate change strategy, and we looked at the energy strategy, and there was also I can't remember what it was, but it was like a daisy, wasn't it, with the different petals, how the different strategies kind of linked in, and we did say, I think we said that there was a gap in terms of sustainable transport, and that was something that we were originally planning to look at this year, but obviously there's a lot else on the work plan, so perhaps that's something that could just to be bear in mind for later in the year.
Joanne wants to come in as well, Chair.
Sorry, Joanne Portwood next, sorry.
Yeah, I just wondered whether the committee, if you're going to be looking at sort of the implications of COVID for staff in November, whether you'd find it helpful if somebody like the Deputy Chief Executive could come and do a presentation on the recovery plan, because that will also could include new policies for staff. It could be a good sort of broad introduction in terms of what's already there, and then the committee might be able to question him and then identify the gaps in terms of policies that it wants to revise or new policies. Either Adam or the other person I'm thinking of is Adrian Chard. Adrian Chard, he's the HR manager, but I wonder whether Adam, it's obviously up to the committee, it's just a suggestion, but there's something I could put in place if that's of use.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jo. It would be good to get a current update of where we are exactly.
Could I ask a question at some time, please, Mandy? This is Linda.
Linda, then Leslie, okay? And Cyril got his hand up. Linda, Leslie, Cyril. Okay, go on, Linda.
I'd like to ask a question of Peter, really, because this is something that really bothers me, is the fact that, and I think it affects people's well-being, the rubbish, the people who are not sort of throwing things down, and I'm dealing with fly tipping. Would that come under what you're thinking of, Peter? Would we be able to do some piece of a chain of, take your rubbish home or keep, would that sort of come into what you're thinking about as well? Because that really bothers me. You know, people phone me, they've been to Mumbles, they've seen the shops. Why aren't people cleaning in front of the shops? All this sort of, I feel that it affects people's well-being. It's just something I'm throwing in.
Through you, Chair, if I may, very quickly to reply to Linda's point. Very good point to be made, Linda. Thank you. Obviously, my primary focus is on what I call the natural environment and biodiversity. But of course, fly tipping, dropping of litter generally, mismanagement of waste, these all have an impact on biodiversity in the natural environment. So I think the simple answer to your question is yes, and I think it should be included in the work plan for this council, for this committee. Thank you for the question, Linda. Cheers.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah.
Leslie?
I support Joanne's idea. I think that would be a really good way to kickstart, because as you say, if we don't know what's already happening, we could be doing unnecessary work on work that doesn't fit in with that. Just generally, I just wanted to check, are you going to circulate to all of us what you've now put together as a recommended work plan, so we can sort of
yes,
come
yes,
back
yes.
to it? Yeah,
Yes.
brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cyril?
Yeah, Les just asked one of the questions for me there. Also, Chair, I like when I'm in a committee, I like to have written reports. Are you going to go along with written reports? Because I find it gives us something to look back on, with, you know, because sometimes some meetings we go to are verbal, and it takes a long time for me to think of a question, and the meeting's over, if you know what I mean. I would like to see if we can, especially John, where you got the Deputy Chief CEO coming in. Perhaps if we could have it a week before the meeting, so we can sit down and read what's in front of us and put some questions. I don't know about you, Chair. I don't know how you feel on that.
I think so. You know, I'm all for pen and paper. You know what I'm like. I like to have it in front of me. Well, I'm a new chair. I'm not saying you're a new committee, because obviously you've been established for a long, long time. And, you know, I appreciate the knowledge with regards to this PDC that's sitting around this table. Obviously, I've got to make contact with the officers. I've got to build relationships with the officers. This is a whole new agenda to me, and I'm going to have to make contact with officers that I've never had no contact with at all. So for the first, I would say, month or two, I need to build those relationships, you know, like with Joe, and, you know, if for me to get my bearings and to see exactly where I'm going and where the support mechanism is here. But I'm all for written reports, and I agree, Cyril. You know, there's nothing worse than having something on the day and it's lumped in front of you and you're thinking, oh my God, after I could have asked this, I could have asked that. So I come very much from the same stem as you. You know, as much as we can do, it's not going to be overnight, Cyril, because I need to make those contacts first. But I'm very much with you that we will get as much as we can, but then appreciating as well the pressures that the staff and the officers are under currently as well with COVID. So, you know, I think that's where I am, and I've got the utmost respect for our staff and for our officers, and you know, yes, we've got to work together because we've got to get over, you know, the predicament we're in with COVID alone. But agree with you, yes, as much as I can, I will work with the officers and we'll get it out as soon as we can. But it's not going to be immediate, so to be honest. I need to build those relationships.
I agree with you totally, and you know, sometimes you won't get a written one because it's so complex. It's easier for them to come in front of us and give us the information. But thank you, Chair, anyway.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes, sorry. Just a reminder to the chair in relation to written papers. There is a capacity through a working group to share policies and development. I think one of the problems, not just with this PDC and other PDCs, there's quite a short turnaround in terms of writing the paper, getting them approved and the publication. Nevertheless, I see the point and the need to have written information, so you can share draft papers through a working group. Just to let you know, just to remind you.
Thanks for that, Jo. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, and we've got Councillor Sherwood as well.
Paulette first, and then we'll have Mary, okay?
Thank you, Chair. This is just a quick question. Cyril, did you mean an actual paper report? Or just...
you know, it hasn't got to be in full, but as long as it's something there that's got the nitty-gritty of what we want to try and achieve and what is actually in the policy. It's not going to be a full statement, 10, 20, 30 pages full. Just the nitty-gritty of where we are, or where we were, where we are, and where we want to go.
Because I tried to get, you know, a planning committee to have a paper, well, not paper report, but to see what was coming, because I find it so far easier to be there with a magic marker, looking at an actual copy rather than be looking at a computer.
Yeah.
But Hugh said no. It's.
I'm having, you know, as you know, I've just taken over from Mandy's PDC, and I have emphasised to the officers, and fair dues to them. The only trouble is it might take a little bit longer, so I've had to put it back a step on the work plan. But they're working hard, and I can understand that. And sometimes it's not always. I'm not always going to have my way in it. But
Mary, can I just come in before I
Sarah.
Back in? Sorry, guys. I think we need to be aware. You know, it's not only about the officers' time and their commitment and the staff and all these, you know, different pressures. It's also about us being greener, you know, and I know what you're saying, say through an email or, you know, a report online. But when we talk about the green infrastructure, you know, very much, you know, I'm the worst. I print off every single thing because I'm structured, and as Paulette says, a marker, tick, 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 what I want, and then prepare my own report from that. But we, you know, we should be a green organisation. And when we talk about paper waste, probably that's one of our biggest wastes. But I still say I agree with you totally, sir. You know, an online report, just the nitty-gritty to get to the basics and understanding preparation when we come to meeting, especially if we've got a guest, so we can be prepared with our questions.
Yeah.
Mary, do you want to come in, please?
On that, man. In this day and age, as you know, we're all working from home. We can have copies. It haven't got to be a paper copy. They can be sent down through electronically. So we're not wasting 10,000 trees on, you know, on paperwork.
Okay, Mary, do you want to come in?
Thanks. This thing about reports, I know that Joe's made a suggestion, but I think perhaps her suggestion was made without some important background. I think chairs of PDCs, my advice to anyone who's the chair of a PDC is to sit down with legal advice and democratic advice and work out the actual process of getting a written published paper actually uploaded in our agenda pack, because the problem is it needs to go through corporate sign-offs, it needs to be signed off by legal and finance and access to services. And if you have a draft policy or a document that's like for discussion only, you will find that the legal advisors do not want to sign that off for public view. So when something's finalized, it goes out to consultation, and then we get comments back, and then we might refine it, and then it gets published and put in the public domain. That actually makes it really difficult for us in PDC to work on drafts and reiterations and let's change this bit, let's change that bit, because actually kicking around a document that's a work in progress is not something that we can get sign off for. So this is it's a difficulty that we've certainly had in the poverty reduction PDC. I think if an officer is coming to share some information with you, to update the committee on, you know, a piece of work that's going on or something like that, then yeah, they can be asked to produce a report, and that'll get signed off and it'll be approved and it'll be published in our agenda pack. But if we actually are partway through writing a policy and we want to get the draft in the agenda pack to be able to discuss in the meeting, you can't do that. So you have to have working groups then that are held kind of in parallel with the formal meetings, so that you can discuss things that don't have to be published. And that does, you know, that can make things difficult. So having working groups is the way that in the poverty reduction PDC we've worked out how we get through this. And then when something is at a stage where it's a final draft, then we can get it signed off for approval to be included in our agenda pack. But up until that point, if you want to actually sit down and look at a document together, you have to have it in a working group. And then in the formal meetings, all you can do is have a verbal discussion about it. There are also rules about translation. And if you're going to be having a PowerPoint presentation, that has to be translated. If you're having a written report, it doesn't have to be translated, but there are constraints around what you can have written reports on. So I know certainly members of committees that I've chaired have been frustrated when we haven't been able to have something written, published in front of us, whether on screen or on paper. That's not really the issue, but having the words there in front of you. And there are things to do with the corporate sign-off process which make that difficult. So I hope that's helpful. It actually took me months of trial and error, and I'm still asking for a sort of a document which will give all of us a clear sort of flow chart that explains the process where a document goes from PDC to in draft form through the process and up to being approved. And I think that might help clarify what can and can't actually go in our agenda packs. So I'm happy to speak with you, Mandy, and also with Cyril in your capacity as a new chair as well, outside of this meeting.
Yeah, Mary. Thank you. That's what you just said there. Now is something I'm learning all the time. So it's brilliant. Yeah. I would like to meet with you, and you've done all this before. So yes, please.
It's been painful.
Yeah,
it's been painful. I know, and Joe's been very helpful and very sympathetic. We're all on a learning journey because actually it hasn't been very clear. And so that is why sometimes there aren't written papers. Yeah, basically. But we'll have a chat another time.
Okay, Maddie, thank you.
Peter, do you want to come in, Peter?
Oh yes, just very quickly again, Chair. Very much strongly to endorse what Mary has been saying about the use of what she calls working groups, which basically are private groups, if you like, small groups taken from the PDC. They can be the whole PDC, of course, if the members so choose, but they are meetings that are not recorded, are not therefore open to general public observation, therefore enabling members to think and say what they wish to say without worrying about possible public impact. And the importance of that too is that it's the members taking control. In a working group, I hope, and certainly my experience of working with those in Mary's area and also Louise with the Black Lives Matter issue, for example, we, the members, were able to think and put forward ideas of our own for the officers to take away and develop and come back to us with. Otherwise, what we're tending, I'm afraid, to get in PDCs is the officers coming forward with completed strategies or near complete policies, which we may not ourselves have had too much of an input into. So I think that's an important consideration. Working groups give members control over policy development, which after all is what we're trying to do, isn't it? In a way that I'm not sure we're always able to do in the full PDC. So I fully endorse Mary. I'm sure Mary will work with Cyril and others, and we can see this approach across all the PDCs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay then, guys, any more input? No. Are we clear on the work plan? I'll touch base now with who I need to, and I'll put a little report together, feed it back to you. And otherwise, the meeting is 24th of November, next scheduled. 24th of November is the next scheduled meeting, guys, okay? I will consider what's been said about workshops, and obviously, no, I will speak to you as well, okay? Thank you all. Thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you, Joe, for your time. And who's the lady from legal? I'm not sure of her name.
Sally Ann.
Sally Ann. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll be in touch with you soon. And the next scheduled meeting is 24th of November. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.